Well, we are in the third and final part of this series, Collision, and we've just been focusing in on the reality that we all want to put the or in between grace, truth. When we place the or there, we start to play a game, don't we? It's like we have stacks of get out of jail free cards or go directly to jail cards, and we subjectively play those cards wherever we see and feel like it fits best. The sin we want to be covered, grace. The sin that we don't understand, truth. The sin that we're okay with, grace. The sin we're not okay with, truth. And we play the game and we look at people and we, again, subjectively, when we have the or there, decide who gets grace and who gets truth. But Jesus came. It's what John writes to us in John chapter 1, verse 14, that Jesus came full of grace and truth. And it's the and that creates all the tension. We feel it. That's why we want to put the or there. And Jesus fully recognized the tension between grace and truth. That's why he talked about it. And more importantly, it's why he modeled it for you and for me. In part 2 last week, we looked at this story about, Sammy, the Samaritan woman. Her name wasn't really Sammy. I just called her that. We don't know her name, but Sammy, the Samaritan, understood the massive barriers between her and Jesus. And Jesus fully understood the barriers between him and Sammy, the religious barriers, the political barriers, the cultural barriers, the positional barriers. And here's what Jesus did with her and what Jesus had a habit of doing everywhere he went. He wanted to completely obliterate the barriers. Why? Because he cared about her heart. He realized that her life was a mess, in shambles. And Jesus chose to sit. That one action fueled by love. Jesus was willing to create so much tension, religious tension, political tension, cultural tension, and positional. He was a rabbi, a Jewish religious leader. And he was willing to create tension within Sammy, within the disciples, and within every person that heard the story. Why? Because he cared about her heart. And he chose to sit. And that action, again, fueled by love, obliterated all of those barriers. And here's what I want you to know. Whether you've been part of Tri-County Church for decades or maybe this is your first time, we are a choose to sit church. We just are. Is it messy? Yes, it is. Does being a choose to sit church create tension? Absolutely. Do good-hearted Christians not understand this all the time? Yes. If you've been around here any length of time, have you heard from some good-hearted Christians that, they just don't understand why we choose to sit in the tension, in the mess? And they just don't get it? And you've had to take kind of the brunt of that? Yeah, I get that. But I just want you to know, intentionally, we're a choose to sit church. Why? Because, Jesus taught it and he modeled it over and over and over again. I want you to know, I could share with you story after story after story of me choosing to sit with someone. Tension-fueled, religious, political, cultural, positional tension. And I've sat with people full of truth, grace. Because that's what we're called to be as Christ followers. So I just want you to know, if you're ever here, if you ever have a good-hearted Christian who has their stones in their hands ready to throw stones, I just want you to know, choose to sit with them too. Full of truth and grace. Let's model this. Let's live this out. this be okay in the tension and the mess. And maybe, just maybe, understand that sometimes we might not have great answers or great responses, but we are going to choose to sit. Because that's what love looks like. Now, we're going to look at this one last tension-fueled, grace and truth-fueled story that, again, Jesus is at the center of. But before we get to that story, I want to just ask a question, or at least surface a question that I'm sure all of us have asked at some point or multiple times in our life. And it's just, what do I have to do to get into heaven? I mean, usually that question comes up, I know it starts to surface in my mind if I'm sitting at a funeral, or maybe I'm actually officiating the funeral, right? It's just in the back of my mind. Or if I'm talking with someone who has a loved one who's ending their the end point of their life, right? This question usually starts to surface in some way. I'm not saying it's asked as directly as that, but that question, right, it just surfaces, it just swirls in the back of our mind. And usually when we think about the question, what do I have to do to get into heaven? All of a sudden we get this image of the pearly gates. And I have no idea what they look like, but I think they might look just like this, right? They start to open real slowly, and they don't creak. Why? Because it's heaven. Like there's an eternal supply of WD-40, right? They don't creak, right? They open. Smoke is just kind of creeping from behind the doors, and all of a sudden the spotlight turns on, and all of a sudden out from the fog, out from the smoke, all of a sudden is an angel. I'm talking like an angel, like the angel, whatever picture in your mind. I mean, big wings angel. I mean, tall, 6'5" angel, 6-pack ab angel, blue eye angel, flowing blonde hair. I don't know what the angel looks like, but it's that angel. Huge book in his hand. I mean, huge book. And he has biceps angel. And he comes walking out of the pearly gates, and he looks at you. He goes, "What's your name?" Your voice starts to tremble a little bit to try to eke out your name because you're overwhelmed. But you know the book has your name in it, or it doesn't have your name in it. And you're just hoping that your name in it. So you share with him your name. And he opens that book and he starts to flip to, your name, to see if your name's actually in the book so that you can get into heaven. And all of a sudden you say, hey, angel, sir, I know the entry requirements. And maybe you have a short list of entry requirements, or maybe you have a long list. But you know what's on that list? That list maybe is populated by the type of church you're raised in, the type of denomination you were part of. Maybe that list is populated by your mom, your dad, your grandparents, your uncle. I don't know. Maybe that list is populated by a movie that you watched on TV. Maybe that list is populated by guilt. Who knows? But you have a list of entry requirements. You start thinking to yourself, I hope I have the right requirements. I hope I have the right things on the list. And I hope I've checked all the boxes. And you looked at the angel, sir, and you go, hey, sir, angel, sir. Hey, I just want you to know, because I've done all these things. Because I've made sure that the list is all filled out, the boxes are checked, because my name should be in the book. You pause and you wait as he flips each page. And he pauses and he stares down to see if your name is there. There's something in the back of our minds, isn't there? What must I do to get into heaven? There's a story that's recorded in all the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. In fact, we get different insights and different perspectives from all of the four Gospels, the story of Jesus. And Luke tells us that, Jesus had been arrested, he had been beaten, he had been found guilty by Pilate. And Luke writes that two other men, both criminals, were also led out with him, with Jesus, to be executed. When they came to the place of the skull, they crucified him, Jesus there, along with the other criminals, one on the right and one on the left. Now, we don't know much about these criminals. Maybe you've heard or read that they had names. I mean, they did have names, but we're not really sure what their names were. I mean, there's some thoughts out there that maybe we know their names, but that doesn't really matter. What did they do? We're not sure. Luke calls them criminals. Matthew and Mark call them rebels. Whatever they did, well, the punishment was crucifixion. John writes that Pontius Pilate, the Roman governor, the one that Caesar put in charge to oversee, to rule this region, had ordered a wooden sign to be made that read, Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews. I mean, not only did he have it written in Aramaic, the common language in that region during that period of time, he also had them write that phrase in Greek and Latin. He covered all of his bases, and they nailed it to the top of Jesus' cross. Well, the chief priests and other Jewish religious leaders, they were appalled that they actually put the sign, Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews, because for the Jewish religious leaders, he wasn't a king of the Jews. So they went to Pilate. They protested Pilate, said, Pilate, you can't put that sign on top of Jesus' cross. You got to change the sign. You got to say, no, he claims to be king of the Jews, because he's not. I mean, he says he is, but he's not. It's ridiculous. And Pilate looks back at them and says, the sign says what it says. I'm not going to change it. And there Jesus hung in the middle between these two criminals, these two rebels. Thousands and thousands of people were there. It was Passover. They had traveled from all over the known world to come to Jerusalem to celebrate Passover. And now Jesus, the most popular person during that time period. I mean, everyone had at least heard stories about Jesus. Now Jesus is on the cross with that sign above his head. And well, crowds of people started to gather around and walk by and stare up and shout at him. Hey, Jesus, come down from that cross, if you are the Son of God. Hey, Jesus, if you are who you say you are. Hey, Jesus, if you are what you've taught everyone about you, what you've modeled to everyone about you, what everyone said, if you are, hey, Jesus, if you are, come on, Jesus. The crowd screamed and verbally attacked Jesus. We're told in the Gospel of Matthew that the religious leaders, the chief priests, the Pharisees, the Sadducees started to scream at Jesus. And I mean, they had been plotting this moment for years, and they started to shout, he saved others, but he can't save himself. They continued and they said, he's a king of Israel. Let him come down from the cross. Then we'll believe him. I mean, the sign says he's king. I guess he's king. If that's all true, then he can just get off that cross. Then we'll believe him. These chief priests, these Jewish religious leaders continue to scream. He trusts in God. He trusts in God. Because he said that he's a son of God. And because he said he's a son of God and he trusts in God, let God rescue him. Come on, God. If he's your son, God, you better show up. You better do something right now. We're here. We're watching. We're waiting. In the Gospel of Luke, we're told that even the soldiers got involved. The soldiers started to scream and mock Jesus. And they said, if you are the king of the Jews, save yourself. And then Matthew gives us this insight that, then Matthew writes, he goes, in the same way, the rebels, the criminals, the two men on the left and the right of Jesus who were crucified with Jesus also heaped insults on him. Could you imagine? Let's pause there for a moment. Could you imagine? I mean, Jesus had to be completely overwhelmed. I mean, he went from a small room where he's having supper with his closest friends to all of a sudden he's praying in the garden, and then he's arrested and he's beaten and he's convicted, and now he's on a cross, and the crowds people are yelling and screaming at him. The Jewish religious leaders are yelling and screaming at him. The soldiers are yelling and screaming at him, and the two criminals on each side of him are yelling and screaming at him. But at some moment, something started to shift. One of the criminals, we're told, Luke tells us that one of the criminals still looked at Jesus and said, "Aren't you the Messiah? Aren't you the promised one? Aren't you the one that we've all been waiting for? If that's true, save yourself and us." But the other criminal shouted back over Jesus, around Jesus, and said, "Don't you fear God, since you're under the same sentence?" He goes, we're punished justly, for we are getting what our deeds deserve. Hey, we deserve to be crucified. Hey, what we did, whatever it was, what we did was so bad. We have earned crucifixion. We have earned death. We have earned this pain. We have earned this suffering. Hey, we have. But this man, Jesus, has done nothing wrong. And I wondered to myself, what caused this one rebel, this one criminal, to at one moment in the day, as he hung on the cross, he hurled insults at Jesus. But at some moment, something changed within him. Something started to shift. Something caused him to take notice as he was suffering in pain, as his life was coming to an end. Something happened within him, and we don't know what that was, but I wonder if all of a sudden, as he hung there on the cross, he started to think about what happened moments earlier. I don't know if it was 15 minutes earlier or 30 minutes or 90. I don't know how much time earlier. But at some point, he started thinking about the moment when the crowds were screaming and yelling at Jesus. He heard Jesus say, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they're doing." And I wonder for this criminal, all of a sudden, Jesus' words started to mess in his head, started to roll around in his soul, and he started thinking about the stories that he had heard about Jesus. The stories that had captivated his mind as Jesus completely broke down the cultural, the religious, the political position barriers. As he heard stories about Jesus, as he served people, as he loved people, as he touched the unclean, as he associated with sinners, just like him. And all of a sudden he goes, and this guy who doesn't deserve to be on the cross looks down at the people screaming at him and says, Father, forgive them? And then this criminal, this rebel, looks at Jesus and says, hey, Jesus, remember me. Remember me when you come into your kingdom. Hey, Jesus, I know just moments ago I was yelling and screaming at you. Remember me. Hey, Jesus, I have no other option. I'm going to die here in moments. Remember me. Hey, Jesus, my life has always been a mess. It finally caught up to me. I'm guilty as charged, but just remember me. Hey, Jesus, I can't do anything for you. Remember me. It's all I ask from you. Jesus, I can just imagine as he tries to turn his head, every movement on the cross had to just induce overwhelming pain. But he wanted to look him in the eyes. And Jesus answered him and said, I'm sorry. It's too late. There's requirements. There's a list. And you can't check all the boxes. It's too late. You're on the cross. You can't get off. You can't do anything about the requirements. You can't fix that. You're out of time. You're all but dead. It's not what Jesus says to him. Jesus answers him. He says, truly I tell you that today you will be with me in paradise. Today. You see, we think about this question, what must I do? What must I do to get to heaven? We think about this question. And usually we answer it with, well, because I went to church. because I read the Bible, I studied the Bible, I believe the Bible, I memorized all of the Bible. I mean, I read cover to cover of the Bible because I've been trying to live out this Bible, because I pray, because I tithe. I give generously to God's church because I believe it's the hope of the world. Because I was a good husband. I never cheated on my wife. I was a good wife, never cheated on my husband. I was a good dad. I was a good mom. I was a good grandparent. Hey, I was an honest business owner. I never cheated on my taxes. I only went 5 miles over the speed limit ever, and that's not really sinning. It's a miscalculation of the speedometer. Because I. But here's the thing. It has nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with me. It has nothing to do with I. It's because He died. Because He took on the sin of the world. My sin. Your sin. Because He was buried and God raised Him from the grave. And because He is alive today. It's because of Jesus. It has nothing to do with you or me or what we do. It has everything to do with Jesus. It's why the cross is the image of the tension of truth and grace. The cross. Truth. The cross reveals the destructive consequences of our sin. Jesus on the cross took on the sin of the world. He lost His life, death, because of it. And the cross, empty, is a gift that we can't earn, that Jesus has extended for you and me. The cross is the image of the tension between truth and grace. When Jesus was on the cross and when that sin came onto him, it separated him from God the Father. And you see, our sin creates separation in our relationship with God the Father. Not because God wants the separation, but that's what sin does. And grace is God saying, come back to me. Come back. I got you covered. The cross is the image, is the picture of the tension between grace and truth. Truth reveals our brokenness, our messiness, our imperfections. And the cross is the image of God's redemptive story. So here's my encouragement for you, for me, for all of us. Pursue truth. Pursue truth, God's framework that He's designed that leads to life, abundant life, the best life you could have here on this earth. Pursue His truth, discovered in His Word, the Bible. You got to read it, and not just words, but embed it into your heart, into your soul, into your mind. Struggle with it. Allow the tension to well up within you, and live by His words. Pursue His truth. You have one life to live. One life. One day you will be standing there at the pearly gates. And I think God's just going to ask, hey, what did you do with the one life? Did you partner with me in my kingdom work? Or did you just waste your life away? Partner with God. He is doing something so incredible in and through His church across all of our communities. Pursue truth and receive grace. Because you'll never be good enough. I, Chris Truthway, will never be good enough. No matter how much I pursue truth, it reveals how broken and messy and sin-riddled I am. And so I just continue to receive God's grace. And it's the cross that reminds us what John wrote. That Jesus, the Word, the Logos, who is with God in the beginning, chose to become flesh, full to the rim of grace and truth. Pray with me. Lord, I not only pray that we embrace that for ourselves personally, but that we'll extend that. That we will choose to sit. That we'll choose to enter into the tension, into the mess, whether it's political, cultural, religious, whatever it is, that we'll choose to sit with other people, full of grace and truth. In your name I pray.